Welcome back to the Kaur and Singh Vaad-Vivaad debate competition, the first ever Sikh youth debate competition taking place right here at the JUS TV studios in New York City. We have been broadcasting the entire journey that these extremely talented contestants have been on, from their training sessions to the preliminaries to the semifinals. And now, as we advance rapidly towards the finals, we have one debate left in this round. Debate 4 of the semifinals. You'll see the same contestants you've been seeing before, and as before, they will be arguing the opposing viewpoints. So with that, I'd love to welcome contestants for debate 4. Arguing in favor of the resolution to my right, Sumer Singh. Sumer, good to have you back. Arguing against the resolution to my left, Ruhani Singh. Ruhani, welcome back. I wish you both the best of luck. And with that, let's start debate 4.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Is the pro speaker ready? All right, you have 4 minutes. Your time starts now.
I affirm the resolution all Gurdwaras in the USA should impose a ban on speeches from politicians. My value is Sikhi, therefore my Sikh framework is speaking truth to power. My first contention is political influence can deviate our focus away from meaty-beaty. Politicians often want us to avoid any discussion on political issues out of sheer fear that our activism could harm their political interests. For instance, when the farmer protests were occurring in India, Sikhs appealed to Congressman John Gurmandi, who happened to be the chairman of the Sikh caucus in Washington, to issue a statement in favor of the farmer protests. He refused to issue a statement because he did not want to hurt his relationship with India. Having such a person speaking from our Gurdwara stage would have hurt our activism and confused our Sangat. Congressman John Gurmandi's lack of appreciation for Sikh ideal of meaty-beaty cannot be tolerated in a Gurdwara environment. Just as Guru Nanak spoke out against Babur in his Babur Bani and Guru Gobind Singh sent the Zafarnama to Aurangzeb, we as Sikhs must always speak truth to power. This kind of engagement with meaty-beaty is part of the religious practice and can never be divorced from religious activity. My second contention is allowing politicians to speak at our Gurdwara Sahib can cause divide within our Sangat. In an article by Duke University, it states political polarization has become a significant issue in contemporary societies, leading to deep divisions among individuals and communities. This growing divide undermines the sense of belonging, cooperation, and shared purpose that our Sangat relies on. If we don't address this polarization, we risk losing the connections that hold us together. Another example of division in an article at positive.digital, it states Guru Gobind Singh's Jayanti will be celebrated on December 22nd, 2024. This date is determined based on the lunar calendar. In 1999, the Akal Takht ordained that all Sikhs must follow the Nanak Shai calendar, which is the solar calendar, replacing the existing lunar calendar that was being provided to us by Hindu Brahmins in Jalandhar. According to the Hindu lunar calendar, Guru Gobind Singh's Gurpurab occurs on December 22nd in 2024. However, according to the Nanak Shai calendar, this date never changes and the Gurpurab always occurs on January 5th. With the intervention of self-seeking politicians, Sikh Gurdwaras keep reverting to the lunar calendar and keep changing this date. This in itself provides a major event in Sikhism which is misrepresented due to politicians. The results speak for themselves, as frequently in a multitude of Gurdwaras, the Sikh calendar is not utilized at all. My third contention is politicians are frequently misleading the Sangat. In an article by SBS Hindi, it states, Indian officials use Gurdwaras as a platform to play political games. It should be stopped. Politicians frequently make empty promises to get our votes or are trying to influence us to appease their political parties. To make things worse, politicians that come to share their opinions have no background on the uniqueness and traditions of the Gurdwaras they visit, and are in no place to dictate what we do on a daily basis. Indian politicians have frequently tried to label Sikhs as Hindus, and their presence on the Gurdwara stage can lead to an identity crisis in the Sikh youth. For example, in a contentious speak by Kuldap Nair at the Palatine Gurdwara in Chicago 1996, he tried to argue that Sikhs and Hindus are the same. This was less than 30 years ago. And as Sikhs, the idea of someone coming into our sacred place of worship and preach about how we are Hindus is disturbing and simply should not be the case. These politicians also twist our perception and influence to think what they want you to believe. Instead, it is a better idea to share these ideas within the Sangat and work past our political differences together, without an outsider that knows nothing of our lives telling us what to do. The affirmative case rests.
Thank you so much. We'll have our neg case, unless you'd like to take some prep time.
Yes, can I have 3 minutes of prep, please?
Absolutely.
Time starts now.
All right. Neg, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Learning.
Your time begins now.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Respected judges, esteemed opponent, and members of the Sangat. Today, we negate the resolution. All Gurdwaras in the USA should impose a ban on speeches from politicians. Sikhi is not just a personal faith. Rather, our framework revolves on the fact that it is a sovereign, spiritual, and temporal force. So, when we say Raj Karega Khalsa, it's not just a phrase, but a declaration from the Khalsa that we must engage in governance and justice. We do not separate the ritual and the spiritual from the political because Sikhi demands that we challenge oppression, we uphold righteousness, and we advocate for the justice of all. So, with this in mind, we understand that while we do respect the spiritual nature of a Gurdwara, the blanket ban on political speeches is neither historically accurate nor is it beneficial. Banning would silence advocacy, weaken our community's political engagement, and ignore our historical warriors and their fight for truth and justice. Contention 1, political speech reflects Sikh tradition of debate. Political speech isn't just about campaigns, it's about an applied dialogue on justice. Consider Sidgosht, a direct example of Guru Nanak Dev Ji engaging in debate. He didn't shy away from questioning the Siddhas, nor did he avoid intellectual challenges. If debate and discourse were vital to Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mission, how can we say that political discussions, be they from politicians or not, centered especially on Sikh rights, don't belong in a Gurdwara, where Sikhs come to meet? Furthermore, during Sarkari Khalsa, the governance system of the Sikh empire, decisions were made through open dialogue among Sikh leaders. And this meant that the Khalsa doesn't rule through silence, but rather to discuss ideas and strategize on governance and make collective decisions for the Panth together. So today, what we know is that when a politician speaks in a Gurdwara about policies that affect Sikhs, we shouldn't shy away from that. I mean, the Ghadar movement in Stockton, California worked for revolutionary premises and promises, and they did that in the Gurdwara because that is where they could make the greatest impact. Contention 2, a ban silences Sikh advocacy. When a politician speaks, why do they speak? It's because the audience has the power. In the end, the audience listens, they engage, and they respond. So a ban on political speeches removes this power from the Sangat, and it prevents crucial discussions about Sikh concerns happening within our own spaces. So Sikh history proves that silence isn't an option. And we can see this how engaging with politicians has benefited the Sikh community, with the American Sikh Congressional Caucus being formed through direct engagements with Representative Judy Cho, or how we won acceptance into the U.S. Marine Corps while maintaining our dastars and our beards. So overall, what happens is in a Gurdwara, where Sikhs can make an impact and they can make it together, the implications are far-reaching. Contention 3, regulation, not banning, is the solution. Because without a doubt, political engagement can lead to corruption. However, we can easily put a stop to this. We must set clear guidelines on what political speeches can and cannot include. Issue-based discussion should be encouraged, while factional endorsements and party-driven campaigns can be prohibited. A political speech doesn't mean partisanship. Consider Sardar Tirlochan Singh. He's a former BJP member in India who has spent decades advocating for Sikh issues. While we should restrict him talking about BJP policies in a Gurdwara, we can't restrict the fact that he has helped Sikh youth in India go away from drug problems or get into education that has got them higher seats on tests and state tests within India. Should we not allow our Sikh youth to be disengaged from that? So overall, what we know is that the Gurdwara has never been just a place of worship, but a heart of Sikh activism and justice and leadership. Banning political speeches means we make Sikhs politically irrelevant. We close our own doors upon ourselves. So, then to go forward and respond to my opponent's argument, it is no doubt that truth is power. And as Sikhs, we have power in giving the truth. But can we not deny, do we have to deny that power comes from Vaad-Vivaad? It comes from debate. Power comes from political discussion. This has been one of the most empowering activities I've ever been a part of, and that is direct discourse, be it on political topics like a gun ban or political speeches. So what we understand from this is that power comes from these ideals, and Raj Karega Khalsa is the embodiment of that power. And thus that framework embodies the framework of my opponent as well. My opponent discussed the idea of fearing political discussion. He said that within a policy and within a politician coming to a Gurdwara, what happens is there's the possibility in which we become more divided, or that a political figure comes with the need to make us more separated or forget our own voice. But what happens from this is if we don't use our own platform with one another, then we will become silenced. We will become opposed. So isn't giving speeches, engaging in discourse in our Gurdwara the direct clause against that? And then we understand that we could be divided by a speech-giving political figure. And while this is 100% true, I also believe we need to have faith within our Sikh Qaum and the lessons that our gurus have given us to make it so we are not like any other polarized party within the United States. We are not a Republican or Democrat and only just that. We understand that we might be one of those parties alongside our intersectional Sikh faith that makes us different and makes us more empowered because of that collective identity we have. And then there's the possibility that these governments can mislead us in political figures, but what we know is that politicians can also inspire truth and inspire the youth, not just make them deviate from Sikhi. We see that with Lochin Singh. We can see that with Harmeet Dillon. Her parents are part of my Gurdwara, and she, as a Republican figure, had given an ardas at the Republican event and convection, and that she has inspired me. Whether I agree with her ideals or not, what I know is that a Sikh figure who can stand for Sikh rights and can make an impact. So she comes and she talks about her journey to making it and making her voice in politics a big thing. I'm going to listen to that. So what we understand is Sikh speeches or giving speeches in the Gurdwara is far more than just being alienating or misleading, but it leads to our own governance. And Raj Karega Khalsa.
All right. So this moves us to the pro, unless you'd like to take some prep time.
I'd like to take 3 minutes, please.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Your time begins now.
In the neg side's case, in the first contention, it states political speech reflects the ideas of debate. This is not merely, politics is separate from debate. Of course, politics includes the ideologies behind debate, but debate is friendly to all the youth. Politics can hurt the youth in the Gurdwara exponentially. I propose this. In second grade, I once had a class discussion on what your favorite candy was. Half the class was in favor of Kit Kats, while the other half, Mike and Ike's. I sat there quietly, not knowing how to express my love for Sour Patch Kids. The second I built up the courage to finally say it, I like Sour Patch Kids, I was excluded from everything, including playing on the monkey bars, playing basketball with my friends. So imagine the discourse that would come in the Gurdwara if a politician was advocating for a certain central idea and the youth were separated and segregated separately. Also, in the second contention, the next side mentions that the audience has the power But is that really true? Or I like to think that the politician is the one in the power, because everyone in the audience is the one that's listening to him. And they're the ones that are going to contribute his ideas or her ideas, the politician's ideas, in their own daily lives. They can influence our daily lives at an extreme rate and influence how we go about things, how we go about our culture, how we go about different things. Imagine somebody coming into the Gurdwara and saying, oh, we are Hindus. This happened with Kuldeep Nair in 1969 when he mentioned this, and that itself represented a case in which the Sikhs and Hindus were proclaimed as the same in a speech. And this happened in less than 30 years ago. And the idea of someone coming into our Gurdwara and saying these things is simply blasphemous and should not be the case. Of course, there are extraneous cases in which somebody can come to the Gurdwara and spread goodness, but not everyone is like that. We have to understand that there's people who are going to spread the wrong ideas, spread ideas that shouldn't be in the Gurdwara, and spread ideas that are going to hurt the community, hurt the youth, hurt the people who are going to be listening, young children who won't know what to do with this information that they're acquiring. In the third contention, the next case mentions there are other ways to help Sikh youth and to advocate. I want to mention, or they talk about Nishkam TV. Nishkam TV in this debate program are helping kids. We don't need politicians to advocate for us. We can use other programs such as Nishkam TV, Sikh Coalition, Khalsa Aid, and so many more organizations that can help advocate for the same ideas that we would get from a politician and not risk. I rest my case.
Awesome. All right. Do you want to take some time before your crystallization, or are you ready?
I'll take the remaining time.
Perfect. Your 3 minutes begins now.
I'm very grateful for this fruitful discussion, and I think that I won this debate because in my first contention, I mentioned the ideology of Miri Piri and how it can be deviated from. My opponent failed to make a counterclaim to this argument and instead went on a tangent about a different idea in its entirety. In my second contention, I mentioned how allowing politicians to speak at our Gurdwara Sahib can cause divide within our Sangat. This was countered by stating the positives that a politician could hypothetically bring in a Gurdwara. However, are those positives a risk that we're willing to take to be able to divide our Sangat? Imagine saying this: we are willing to take the risk of dividing our Sangat, perhaps ruining our Sangat's ideologies, in exchange for maybe a mere good constructed idea from a politician that might help. But what if it doesn't? What if I don't think that the risk is willing to take for us? In the third contention, I mentioned how politicians are frequently misleading the Sangat. This idea of them misleading the Sangat was not contradicted properly, in the sense that the idea of a politician coming and saying Sikhs are Hindus was not contradicted at all. We didn't get an analysis on why that couldn't cause an identity crisis in the Sikh youth. Instead, the opponent argued that language classes and things of that nature were more beneficial to the Sikh youth and could come out of these politicians, and that we could get ideas from these politicians in how to act in our daily lives. However, the Sikh youth could easily have an identity crisis when in reality the politicians are throwing ideas that might contradict with their own the Sikh ideologies which they are supposed to believe. And when the opposing side was saying their contentions, I responded to each one by one, in the sense that in contention 1, I countered the argument that the political speech reflects the ideas of debate by stating that Debate is just one mere part of politics. Politics is so much more. It can be there for personal gain. Many politicians try to strive for personal gain in different ideas that could only help them. They're not looking. Many politicians don't look out for the rest of the Sangat, but rather themselves. And we cannot have this. Historically, the gurus were the best politicians that we could have possibly had because they had concrete evidence and they were here to help us, rather than politicians today who are just merely trying to stray us away from the ideas that we should truly believe. And many politicians, are we willing to really take this risk in order for maybe one constructed argument from a politician? The affirmative case rests.
Awesome. All right, our final speech, unless you'd like to take some time.
I'd like to take my prep, please.
All right, awesome.
All right, you have 3 minutes starting now.
All right. The final speech will begin now.
At the end of this debate, it is clear that the negation has gained control of what our final verdict is. And me and my opponent have agreed on many different things. We have agreed that political speeches can lead to corruption, and they have in the past. We've agreed that politicians can often misguide a Sangat and the youth. And we have agreed that instances such as mistaken calendars and mistaken identities can be 100% detrimental to the Sikh Qawm and to our identity and ourselves. However, where we have met our main clash point has been one within our framework. And that is, in the end, what does it mean to Raj Karega Khalsa? That means no matter what endeavor the Khalsa takes together, we do so powerfully, and we do so together. And that is how the Khalsa rules. Together and powerfully. And those are the fundamentals that have driven my contentions to between his. My opponent had stated that we must fear political discussion within a Gurdwara for the sake of politicians misguiding us or wanting to silence us. But has the Khalsa ever lived in fear? No. That has been our number one key detail as we face opposing threats in this world. That when we rule, we'll do so justly, and we'll do so without bending to powers such as Babur, or without bending to politicians such as the Sikh government in '84, or we'll do so when so many try to oppress us in the spirit of Raj Karega Khalsa. We will stand up firmly, and we will reply back. My opponent then said that politicians often divide us, but the truth is this: the audience has the power to make that not happen, and the reason is because within a Gurdwara, we are with our Sangat. Yes, I agree. In the back alleyway, someone can tell me, Rohani, believe in this. But within my Sangat, people who have different ideas, who know for the betterment of myself and themselves, I can stand against misleading ideas and misleading speeches. That can only happen Raj Karega Khalsa within my Khalsa. Finally, what we know is that my opponent explained that we can be misled. Our identity can be misled, and that hurts us. But the truth is, our gurus have given us a distinct identity on purpose. Has given us the dastar, has given us a crown, the 5Ks, because the reason is we don't bend to power structures, because we believe that our distinction is what makes us strong. And thus, the struggle becomes about power. What does it mean to be powerful? And what we understand is with the Khalsa, we are powerful. And that is how we rule justly. And we rule fairly, and we can only do so when we grapple with the political gripes of our world. And the truth also is that in this world, with our Sikh identity, we face large challenges. We face mistaken identity, we face airport terminal security, we face in our schools discrimination, but what makes us go through that is our Khalsa. Bulchuk maaf deni ji. Vaheguru ji ka khalsa, Vaheguru ji ki fateh.
Amazing round. Thank you guys so much.
Hello, judges.
Hello.
Just wrapped up our final semifinals debate. Really well argued. A lot of passion. I think they were trying to put their finishing touches to make their case for the finale. I could, as a coach, again, was watching and trying to see, some of the things that I was picking up. And one of the themes that really jumped out was really, really strong crystallization from both sides. When I was listening to Sumer, he did an excellent job both rebuffing some of Rouhani's rebuttals while also strengthening his own contentions that he made, both pointing out why the rebuttals weren't apt or weren't correct, and also saying that actually strengthened his own contention. On the flip side, when we look at Rouhani and her crystallization, I think she really latched on to one of the claims that Sumer was making, and that is politicians create division and sort of can mislead Sangat in the Gurdwaras. And she jumped on that and she said, when has the Khalsa Panth ever bent their knee to power?
So this is one of the interesting debates that happened today, and they both made amazing arguments. And of course, I wanted to start it off by saying a few things I liked on both sides. The pro, one thing that really caught my eye was it was very small, but it was something that I personally just meant a lot. Was when they mentioned the Nanakshay calendar, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues surrounding it, and what to follow with all the dates, the lunar calendars and stuff like that. But the pro made an excellent argument with the Nanakshay calendar and how it was very Hindu based and stuff, and how that it was almost an example of what happens when when politics start playing a role in the Gurdwara, right? We saw that it leads to issues, which is one of the core arguments that the pro made, right? And one of the most impressive things that the Khan made was I think what really caught my eye was the history stuff, right? The mention of the Gadar movement and the BJP person, right? While the BJP is not regarded as the most ideal party, right? The guy that still was part of the BJP party was, they still used it as evidence as they're still helping Sikh youth, right? While there are going to be restrictions on it, right? She basically said it was this idea of regulating it rather than not actually getting rid of it entirely, right? So I think that was a really important key role and topic that she mentioned as for her argument. How about you guys? What did you guys like, and what caught your eye?
Yeah. I can go first. Okay. I think again for this debate, just to start off with a high level, I think the crystallization was the best that we've seen so far. Especially Sumer, he went contention by contention. Here was my contention, here was the rebuttal, and here's my response to that. Thought that was the most clear structure that we've seen so far. And then again, Rouhani's crystallization again was very good. She did a really good job of tying down the debate to the key voting issues that we're going to discuss in this debrief today. So again, I think the crystallization was excellent on both sides. When I'm looking at the affirmative case, I think the points that were brought up by the affirmative case are very strong in terms of divides in the Sikh community and misrepresentation. And then also politicians can mislead the Sangha, or they have no backgrounds on Sikh, so they don't have enough context. So I think it's a really strong case, but the negative comes back with a strong case as well. And we see that, like you mentioned, especially in her first contentions where she's citing Sikh's historical aspects of politics and in the Gurdwara space, what that looks like. And then she also mentioned in terms of the audience is not a silent audience. We can choose how to participate. So let's not fear what's being said in the Gurdwara. Let's be educated about it and let the audience take their own stand. So I thought that was really powerful as well. And I think that her last contention, I think, really sets the tone for the debate, which is regulation and not banning. However, I feel that contention, as you mentioned, although really powerful, both contestants kind of dropped that here and there, or else that was a really solid piece that I liked of her case. This was a very strong debate, but I think it comes down to again the key voting issue, which is really going to be the framework and the points that were brought up by Naneg, and really what do political speeches look like.
Yeah.
I think, down to the frameworks, it was interesting seeing the pro, and again, both debaters were incredible. I think the pro did a really good job of really trying to drive home the idea that there's manipulation. And I was really impressed that the pro continued to bring it up and say, yeah, we haven't gotten a response yet. There's been no counter to this point that there's mistaken identities, which the Khan did ultimately address in the final focus. So I do want to make sure that that's also something that we think about. But I think that was impressive that he knew which points to really hit on and continue driving. But back to the frameworks, it was interesting because Rouhani brought the framework of sovereignty and connected that to the idea of Raj Karega Khalsa as the key value, as connecting to the key value of Sikhi, whereas Pro said speaking truth to power. And I understood where speaking truth to power was coming from in terms of the Pro, but I think that Khan did a really good job of saying, well, listen, yeah, speaking truth to power is exactly the key. And so the reason why we can speak truth to power is because if politicians are there, we literally get to speak truth. And have conversations, and even flipped it to say, when we're there, we actually have the power because we're the ones getting to participate, make our voices heard, and connect those to her argument of silencing advocacy, as well as, reflecting the Sikh tradition. I think another very skillful piece of this debate is their ability to point out logical issues with each other's arguments, where the Pro came back to the point about the importance of debate within Sikh history to say, wait a second, politics is separate from debate. You can have debate without having politics involved. And that's not necessarily the same. And sometimes these debates can feel exclusionary to other people. But then what I thought was really strong ultimately on the Khan, and this is where I think the voting issues come down to, is that she was able to do a really good job and say, listen, we have to figure out how to grapple with power. She said as much in her Khan speech, given how much is affecting the Sikh community in this moment. We have to grapple with power. And at the same time, let's not lose faith in our own community. We are not going to bend. And she said that both in her rebuttal speech and in her final focus speech. But in her rebuttal speech, she said, if we don't have faith in our Sanghat, who's going to? And this idea of that discussion won't break us. And Samir had the opportunity to respond to that in either of his two Pro speeches, and he didn't. And so I think that was something she was able to really hammer home in her final focus, because it was kind of left on the table. What about the faith we can have in our community? It is a risk we're willing to take because of that faith we have in ourselves.
Yeah, so knowing all this information, do you think we've come down to a consensus or a final solution of who won?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to again say both did incredible. And I was really, really, really impressed by the Pro's ability to pick up on responses to what he was saying. Because I think that's another skill that I think the kids are great at, but need to continue working on, is this idea of how do I also make sure my arguments stay upheld in the face of rebuttal. And so I was really proud of him for that. And then on the Khan side, really proud of her for thinking about how those frameworks weigh. And honestly, her crystallization speech, I was incredibly impressed by. I think it was so powerfully delivered, and so powerfully brought all of the voting issues together. So yeah, I think we've come to a decision, but so proud of both of them. Yeah, I agree.
Would you like to do the honors?
Sure. Thank you.
So to end our logical fallacy segment, I want to kind of bring up one that I only recently learned of, and it's more of a phenomenon than a fallacy. It's called the black swan phenomenon. So this is it comes from the idea that, there used to be a saying, when swans turn black, because everyone assumed that swans only turned white. This was saying in ancient Rome. Until centuries later, the continent of Australia was discovered, and it was found that swans were actually black there. The idea of a black swan is an event that kind of comes out of nowhere and completely changes our perception of everything, of knowledge, of history. And it's kind of this idea that there is always, no matter how much, as debaters, as intellectuals, we want to read, we want to understand history, we want to predict the future, and that's useful. There's always a little bit element of randomness, of unpredictability. When we look at Sikh history, there's so many what we can say black swan events that happened. If, let's say, there were, analysts from medieval India, working and trying to understand what was happening. Could anyone have predicted the kind of arrival of Guru Nanak Dev Ji and what Sikhi would mean and how it would transform Punjab and the world? I don't think so. So I think, as a debater, you always have to keep in mind, this is something, it's not really a fallacy, but it's kind of something to keep in the back of your mind. Think about the element of unpredictability and allow that element of unpredictability to inform your arguments for the truth. We're trying to find the truth, but sometimes the truth is not, we can't really pinpoint it to an exact moment, but only within some realm of we think this may be true.
Well, folks, this is the final debate in the semi-finals of the Kaur and Singh Vaad-Vivaad debate competition, the first ever Sikh storytelling competition in the United States. Of course, this is the first time, but certainly not the last, that you will see young, talented Sikh individuals get up on a stage and use formal debate technique and compete against each other. You have been riding along on this journey, voting for your favorites, following all of the experiences that these young contestants have faced throughout this many months long process. And here we are at the final debate of the semifinals, debate 4. Of course, once again, I have the results in my hand. Ruhani and Sumair, stand on stage. Before we get to the final results, let's do audience favorites. The audience favorites for debate 4. Sumair Singh! Congratulations, Sumair. The audience really resonated with your performance this week. Sumair, what do you have to say to the folks at home?
Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate all of you.
And now it's time. Once again, I want to remind everyone that while the judges are casting their official votes based on the value criterion, the values framework, the clash, the quality of evidence, these specific factors that are in the Lincoln Douglas debate model. Oftentimes, when a debate is structured, such as this competition, and there is a tie, they use speaker points to break the tie. Today's winner from debate 4, as per the judge's decision, drum roll please, Ruhani Singh! Congratulations again. You guys want to shake hands?
It's a tie.
Did we actually?
Yeah.
What a journey it's been. You have been with us from the beginning, watching along as 8 contestants competed in the preliminaries of the first ever Sikh Youth Debate Program, telecast live on TV, brought to you by Nishkam TV and JUS Punjabi. You've seen these contestants get on this debate stage time and time again and argue for the resolution, both for and against. We've come down from the preliminaries, top 8, to the semifinals, top 4. And now it's finally time to announce the winners of the semifinals who will be advancing to the final stage of this debate competition. Once again, before I announce the winners, the 2 contestants who will be advancing forward, I want to remind everyone that so far in this stage, in the semifinals round, every single contestant has won their matchup at least once. So that means that the judges have had to revert to the speaker points criteria. The highest 2 speaker point candidates, contestants, are advancing to the finals. And it gives me great pleasure, not just for all of our viewers at home, but specifically for all of the contestants on stage, the contestants that are still in the audience with us in a display of showmanship and sportsmanlike conduct, and of course, their parents, families, friends, and supporters who are in our live audience here in our studios in New York City. Everyone is anxiously awaiting the results. I have them here. Joining us in the final round of the Vaad-Vivaad Kaur and Singh debate competition will be, with the highest speaker points score, Ruhani Singh! Congratulations! Good job! Wow. Ruhani, come join me right here. Come a little closer. and competing against Rouhani in the final debate of this competition will be Jasjot Singh! Congratulations, Jasjot. Once again, these two contestants conducted debates over and over again to excel and reach this stage. The final debate will be shared with you soon. But for now, let's have another round of applause for all of our contestants and our winners. Let's shake hands.
I'm Upkaran Singh Pogal, a tech professional and real estate investor. Like many people, I used to think the only way to build wealth was by working hard at a 9-to-5 job. That all changed when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The book opened my eyes to the power of investing, how real estate can create passive income and long-term wealth rather than just relying on a paycheck. I realized that building a portfolio of properties was a way to create financial freedom and gain control over my future. So I dove into real estate investing, and let me tell you, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Investing is key to securing financial independence. Whether you're looking for side income or a long-term strategy, real estate can make it happen. I'm passionate about giving back and teaching others how to get started on their investing journey too. So, if you're interested in learning more about real estate investing, feel free to follow me on Instagram and shoot me a DM.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is Harman Singh, Executive Director of the Sikh Coalition. For more than 20 years, the Sikh Coalition has worked to reduce hate, violence, and discrimination experienced by the Sikh community. Nationwide, we work in the court system, in policy, in education, community development, and media and communications to raise the Sikh profile and build a new future for Sikh youth. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.